What is up there, everybody? It's Zoden here on this fine Sunday evening on Memorial Day weekend. Um, and as it's Sunday evening, you know what that means. You know what that means. So I say that a lot on my videos, opening with, "It's Sunday evening, and you know what that means. You know what that means." And I say it twice because it's a quote from a movie I just got back from watching at my local theater, the Garland Theater here in Spokane, which is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. A classic, I would say a classic, from Terry Gilliam, the director. Uh, so it kind of feels like my generation's Clockwork Orange or something. But even though it's about the 60s. So it's not like that, but it has that kind of nihilistic feel, and that's kind of where I was at after the movie got over. And it's just kind of what that movie does to me is it kind of invokes this nihilistic feel of like, let's just go out and do crazy shit and see what happens, who knows. But it's not really the most responsible thing. But I remember when I was leaving the theater just a bit ago, there was this thought like, do I go home and make my normal Sunday video, or do I go out to a bar and jump into the shit and make some new friends and get rowdy and see what happens? And cooler, more responsible heads prevailed, and I came home to make a video for you guys. Instead of doing like I said, the nihilistic thing, which is, man, like that movie captures an essence that anybody who's been there ever, even though it's a movie and it's way more over the top than probably any experience anyone's ever had, and not many of people out there have done adrenochrome or something, but you can relate if you've been there. If you know, you know. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've been there. I know. I've been there a few times. So anyway, yeah. It gets me like hyped up in that negative, nihilistic mindset. And I say negative, but it's really been my adult life is balancing that desire and love for nihilistic craziness with with responsibility and knowing that you've got people to take care of and such. So anyway, it is Memorial Day weekend, and I surely hope that you are taking a moment to raise your glass, call to memory, and thank, even though they've passed on, the people who served in your life, that served in the armed forces and have passed on. And I've been doing that this weekend, as well as tomorrow I'll do that even more so. But cheers to all those who have passed, who have served. And tonight, my whiskey of choice is, I went back to Old Reliable, which is this guy. The Old Wild Turkey 101, which was always the whiskey I drank. And then somewhere I kind of got a little snobbish, and I'm like, I want to try like some more nicer whiskeys. But the thing about Wild Turkey 101 is you drink that and you know you've been drinking some bourbon, especially if you drink it straight, which I normally do with Wild Turkey. I'm drinking it on the rocks tonight, but typically I would shoot it straight up, and it's one of those ones where you're just like, because I feel there should be like some kind of sacrifice. Like, you've got to feel the pain, you've got to feel the burn, and that's part of the enjoyment of it in my mind. And so that's why Wild Turkey 101, you take a shot of that, you're taking a shot. That said, tonight I'm drinking it on the rocks, and that's fine. But going into this weekend, it just felt like a wild turkey going back to the old school kind of a weekend. But so that's one thing I will say. The weekend's been a mixed bag for sure. It started off about as heavy as it could get. Not as heavy as it can get, but extremely heavy. And I'm not going to talk about what, but I got an email after work Friday that rocked me and shook me and stirred up to the top of the glass a bunch of emotions and thoughts and that I hadn't contemplated or felt in a long time. I'd say almost 10 years. But very heavy hitting. But that said, I had a great time on the gutter with my friend Aldous, which I always enjoy hanging out with Aldous. Because he is like a walking encyclopedia of comic book history. And that is the nature of his show. The Gutter is he'll take an independent creator, they'll spotlight their book as well, but also the main focus in a lot of ways is going back to an old title or story or creator or whatever from the past and delving deep into it. Now, we went way back in time when I was on the show and talked about Hal Foster. Hal Foster, the creator of the comic strip, not even comic book, comic strip, Prince Valiant. And it was so much fun to dive in and learn about the person of Hal Foster and just take a moment to appreciate the high standard he set very, very early on for sequential storytelling that left a mark and, again, a bar that may have never really been reached in a certain sense. But that was 1937. So that was a lot of fun. And we had fun just absorbing and taking in some of his artwork, talking about the character he created in Prince Valiant, and then talking about the person of Hal Foster. It was a blast. And then last night, another friend, Hojo, who had a book that he released called The Mythicals, or he had crowdfunded. He's getting it printed now. But he was closing down his IndieGoGo campaign, which was the bulk of where the funnel of his backers came from. He did do a smart thing. He went across all the platforms, which I think is a smart move. He closed down his Kickstarter, which made a bit, but that wasn't really promoted. The IndieGoGo campaign was his meat and potatoes, and that one was the one he closed down. And then he's got it basically as a storefront on fundmycomic.com, which is a cool idea as well. So he was closing it down, but it's still available. So it was kind of more or less a reason to celebrate his success with his first crowdfunded book. And he did a great job. Like, dude is pure hustle. And very proud of what he was accomplished as far as numbers-wise and book-wise. But doing the closeout, it was probably more just a reason to hang out and get drunk and have fun. And we certainly did that. So congratulations, Hojo, on a great book and a great campaign. And I know he got his proofs back from the printer, so he's like right there. And I'm looking forward to getting my copy of the Mythicals. So those two things, and then I just got back from the movie theater, so I just went and watched a movie. So I've had some like highlight events to mix in with this introspective, heavy-hearted, personal stuff that I'm dealing with that, I'm not going to go into here, but like I said, they stirred up emotions and thoughts that I hadn't really had present in my brain for almost 10 years. So like I said, it was a mixed bag this weekend, and like I also said, hope you celebrate Memorial Day well. I hope you have fun, but I also hope you raise a glass and contemplate and bring to mind the people who have passed on, who served. So that said, this video will probably be really quick or quicker than normal for me. Which I say really quick, like the last few I've made are like 40 minutes to an hour almost. I've yet to make one that's over an hour of just me rambling into a camera. It probably happens someday, but this one will wrap up pretty quick. But so we'll talk about the image on the screen here. This is a page I've been working on for a while. Like I said, it's been kind of a crazy, so it's a little slow going. I've started on the next page, but I'm just highlighting this one for a new story that's going to be in Unconditional Shove Volume 2, which I'm very excited for. And so yeah, worked on this one. We're working on the next page, but this story I think is going to have, it's a quick hitter. It's at the moment it's 12 pages, but it might be more or less as there's fluidity to it when you write and draw, so I can decide. But I think the ending of this story will be pretty impactful. I think it's a really good story. I think it's going to be a fun one. And this is just one of several that are going to be featured in Volume 2. As I know, Volume 1, which I'm really excited to get to people, and it's so very close, but we leaned heavily into the like old school horror anthology, EC, creepy and eerie, etc. But I think Volume 2 is going to feel more like those. So the reason we leaned into it, really, it was just I wanted to make a horror anthology, but like I had two stories that were really long, or not really long, but by anthology standards. In comic books, they were long. And when I was designing the cover, I thought it would be really cool to use a similar font for the title of Unconditional Shove that looked similar to like Tales from the Crypt and Haunt of Fear and Vault of Terror. I was like, I love the look of that font and that title block. So I made it look that way, even though it might not feel as much like that. But the second volume is going to feel much more like that, because I'm trying to keep things a little more concise and compact. So I'm excited. And speaking of Hojo, he's got a story that's going in there. And I'm excited to read the full script here soon, but that's already been greenlit. I'm sure it's going to be great. And yeah, so excited for Volume 2. What else is going on? So I did make it a little further in my Twilight Zone. I did not finish yet. So I'm on Season 5, which is the last season of the Twilight Zone run. And I got a few episodes in last week. I got a few episodes in this week. I've only got 6 more to go. So next week, I'm pretty sure I'll have watched all of them by then. But let's go over a few episodes like I've been doing. It's been fun to kind of like relive these episodes. Now I will say Season 5 was as I talk about my weekend being a mixed bag. Season 5 of Twilight Zone, you would think, in a lot of ways, you would think this would be like the best season. It was not. There were some excellent episodes, but it was littered, amongst a lot of stinkers that I just did not enjoy. Now, I enjoy every Twilight Zone episode. I could watch a Twilight Zone even the worst ones. They're still pretty enjoyable just because I love the format. But there are some bad ones, and I'm trying to figure out where I left off. Okay, so I think I talked about this one last week, but I think this is where I left off, which is Black Leather Jackets. Which, an episode that I think fell short of what they could have accomplished. It felt like Lost Boys at the beginning, like a 1950s, early 60s Lost Boys. It's like this motorcycle gang, and you don't know what's up with them. They're obviously not quite human. Now, it turns out they weren't vampires, they were aliens. And so it's basically Lost Boys aliens, but they really they lost it. They had something that could have been cool, and they just didn't. And then the next episode, which would be episode 20, so I got all the way to episode 30, so I got 10 in. I've got 6 more to go, 36 total. But the next episode is called From Agnes with Love. It was enjoyable, it was fun. It was kind of one that was played for laughs in a lot of ways, which those usually don't age very well. They're not particularly my favorites. Quite often they're like my least favorites. But this one wasn't terrible. It was a computer engineer who created a supercomputer, and a lot of the tech was so bad too. I mean, it's this giant computer with little lights and stuff. It's 60s, trying to show you what high-tech computers are going to be. But basically, it's precursor to some AI kind of sensibilities. So this computer, similar to like HAL or what was that one with Joaquin Phoenix, She. So this computer has a female persona about it. Falls in love with the technician, and actually ruins his actual love life so that he would be with the computer. I mean, it's pretty stupid. It's not the worst. There's some good parts to it. Okay episode. And then episode 21, Spur of the Moment, was pretty good. It had some spookiness to it that I enjoyed. Wasn't very spooky, but it starts off very intriguing, and then the twist wasn't terrible, but it starts off with a girl who's a young lady about to get married, and she's a horseback rider, and she's off in the country riding her horse, and she comes across an old lady on a horse, or an older lady on a horse, who's just like screaming at her, but she can't figure out why. It turns out that's her from the future trying to stop her from marrying, and who she marries is actually part of the twist. Not a terrible episode. Stopover in a Quiet Town was fairly lame. Like, the twist was lame. The acting and the pacing and everything were pretty good, but the twist was so lame that you're like, whatever. It's just this couple who wake up like they were drinking the night before. They wake up all hungover, and they're like, oh, what happened last night? And they end up in this strange town. They're like, did we get a hotel room, or what's going on? And then they're walking around this town, and they realize everything's fake. There's no people around. And they're trying to figure out what they're doing in this little town where there's nobody around and everything seems fake. And it turns out they're just like little pets for a giant alien race. I don't know. The twist wasn't that great. Now, episode 23, An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge, is phenomenal. This was an excellent episode. It is a departure because it wasn't a typical Twilight Zone episode written by their normal staff or directed by their normal staff or even acted that way. It was a small film that had won awards at like Cannes Film Festival, and Rod Serling just went, "This is so cool, I want to feature it on Twilight Zone." And it fit the format lengthwise and everything. But if you watch it, especially if you watch like spaghetti westerns and things, other foreign films that are kind of set in the U.S., it does feel almost like a spaghetti western as far as the cinematography, the soundtrack, and how they use those two together. So, extremely well done. An Occurrence at I'm not going to explain the premise because I think everyone should just watch it. I mean, it has Twilight Zone sensibilities, but it's not like a typical Twilight Zone episode because it was just, hey, this French, I can't remember the director's name, this French short film, we're just going to throw it up as a Twilight Zone episode. But it was really well done. I really enjoyed that one, especially, like I said, the cinematography and the soundtrack. They had that kind of spaghetti western, foreign, European kind of feel. Queen of the Nile was pretty cool. I actually liked that. I dug that one, premise-wise, as much as anything, and I think it was fairly well acted. It's about a lady. She's an actress, but she doesn't seem to age, and then the twist and everything around it is centered around the secret of why she doesn't age. Pretty good episode. What's in the Box, episode 25. This one is not the greatest episode, but it features Sterling Holloway, who, if you don't know, is the voice of Winnie the Pooh. He's also the voice of Kaa on Jungle Book. A very distinct voice. And he's not the main character in the story, but he's kind of like he's the person who carries the plot along. He's the mischief maker who makes these happen. But he's a TV repairman. But just whenever he talks, it sounds like Winnie the Pooh. And it just cracks you up. But the episode itself wasn't terrible. It was interesting. The funny thing was, it centers around a couple who are like this old husband and wife, and the husband had an affair on the woman, and that like leads to a big fight, which is the ending of the show. But their dynamic reminded me so much of my great aunt and great uncle, who are both like really tiny people, but they fought nonstop. And as a kid, they'd been married like 40 some years or whatever. And it was like honeymooners. He was always threatening like physical violence. He never actually followed through, but it was equal parts I don't know, concerning or tense with hilarious and funny, because my brother and I would always like, oh, do you see them fighting? It's my Aunt Verna and my Uncle Joe. So Joe is this little Italian guy, and Verna was my grandpa's sister, and she was like 4'10", and he was like 5'3". You know, I mean, they were just tiny, but they always fought, and he was always doing the like, why I oughta, why I oughta, you know. And she was always like egging him on, like, do it, like just fighting nonstop, and they've been married forever. But that was the couple in this episode, and reminded me of that because, like I said, there was some hilarity to it, even though there was also some tense, you know, kind of like uncomfortable moments. Season 26, episode 26, The Masks. I think this one is one of the more famous from this season. well known, and it's pretty good. I like it. It's a eccentric, rich benefactor to a bunch of his heirs and people, and they're all horrible people, and he kind of like makes a point to show them how horrible they are. I Am the Night, Color Me Black. That's a really good one. I think it would have done better. I mean, it's pretty tense, very well done. I think it would have been better as an hour long, like in season 4. This is one that should have been in season 4. Like, there was just so much more to uncover that I wish they would have. But that's where, like, darkness falls on this town before this guy is going to get executed. And it was good. It was very tense. And I just think there was more to uncover and really, like, expand on the dynamic nature of the story. Episode 28 is a stinker I did not like. It's called Sounds and Silences. The twist was bad. The main character was really annoying. He's supposed to be annoying, but it becomes overbearing. And he's supposed to be overbearing. But not my favorite. I thought it was a stinker. 29, Caesar and Me. I think this one's a well-known episode. It's another ventriloquist dummy scenario. But I don't think it's that great of an episode. I think it's pretty weak, but not the worst. And then the last one I've watched, like I said, I've got 6 more after this. Episode 30 was called The Jeopardy Room, which I loved. And featured a relatively young Martin Landau, who was in, I think, season 1 or 2 in an episode there as well. With another great performance. And this one was really good. The Jeopardy Room. It's got some elements of espionage, some elements of refugee escapee from torture camp, and just very well done. And a menacing antagonist. It was a really good episode. So if you haven't seen The Jeopardy Room, that one's highly recommended. Very cool twist at the end as well. Because it's kind of a cat and mouse game, and very well done. So that one was excellent. And that was the last one I watched. So I've got 6 more. I've got The Encounter. I've got Mr. Garrity and the Graves. I got The Brain Center at Whipple's. Come Wander With Me. The Fear and The Bewitching Pool. And none of those are really standing out. I do remember the Encounter a lot. I mean, I remember all these episodes, but none of them are standing out as me remembering them being great. So we'll see. We only got 6 more to go, and then I'll stop talking about Twilight Zone. What else can we talk about? I did get this. This is Soul Tack. My friend Mad Ruth made Soul Tack. And I got the Blood and Ink version. And this was a lot of... I haven't read it all. But so far I'm enjoying it. The artwork's good. It's pretty text heavy, so it's going to take me a while. Because there's a lot to read. Which doesn't bother me. It bothers other people. But the artwork was good. I'm excited to check it out. So, like I said, I've read a little bit, but yeah, it's definitely text heavy in spots. So, excellent jobs, Mad Ruth. It looks great. The other thing I liked is it gives me an idea about how big Chev will be. So this was, if I remember right, his book is 92 pages. And with the added Cole story, Chev is at 88 pages. So very close to the same size. So that was kind of nice to be like, yeah, we'll be about this big. And we're doing the same thing, perfect bound. I mean, once you get to a certain page count, it's the way to go. So yeah, I was glad to get that, Mad Ruth. I will finish it up eventually here soon. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to talk about. Let's just run through the list of Broken Compass Comics updates and books and where we're at with everything. So I think I mentioned it earlier. We'll start with Unconditional Shove. We're so very close to going to print. From what I understand from James, because we're going to go over all of it here soon, the letters are very near completion, and we will go through all those, get everything ready for pre-press, and then go to print. But also that gives me a chance to get the digital versions specifically so I can get it to the people who backed original art, and which is really exciting. I'm really looking forward to that because I'm kind of curious, because the first person to back it got picked number 1 and down the line, so I'm just curious what they're gonna pick. So the first backer of the original art tier, I'll be able to show them the digital version and be like, which page do you want? But I just think that's super cool. Not that I'm particularly wanting to get rid of original art pages, but I think it's really cool that somebody would throw down high dollar to secure what to me is for sure a piece of history, but to somebody outside going, just showing their belief in it and wanting the artwork that much. I think that's really, really freaking cool. So excited to get that digital version set up so I can get that to the original art backers first, and then just anybody who backed digital can check it out as well. And then go to print, and we'll be right back to fulfilling just like we just did with Bastards. And speaking of Magnificent Bastards, the sign up for issue 2 is now up and ready to go, so you can sign up for issue 2. I haven't talked to James about this, but I'm pretty sure, and if he wasn't thinking this, I'm going to make sure he does, but that there's going to be a catch-up tier if you missed Magnificent Bastards issue 1. And if you did miss that, then you will be able to catch up. But the signups are live for that, and then we've talked about it a few times. We also have signups for Kill Them Dead, which we're very excited about as well. That is one that James and I are writing about a psychedelic trip through the underworld, fighting all of the greatest mythological monsters and gods from many different mythology sources that deal with the underworld. So it's a lot of fun, but it's non-stop action and insanity, and that's what we love about it the most. So kill it, and then we'll have here, not too long down the road, we'll have Unconditional Shove Volume 2 signups, which this page here that is featured right now is, like I said, it is a page from Volume 2. So working on that, and then, just keep staggering things and releasing things and working on things. It's just, it's fun. We're doing it, and I'm having a blast. And with that, I know normally I kind of end on a Jack Handy style, deep thoughts, kind of motivational talk. And, as I mentioned earlier, it's, there's a lot that's been heavy on my heart, which typically would mean I'd have a lot to say on this regard, but I think that'll be more next week. Because right now I'm just like in the thick of a lot of introspection. But Oh, speaking of, I was just thinking of Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey. I loved Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey. And I was talking to Telepathic Bunny on Twitter, and we were just going back and forth about Deep Thoughts. But I had to relay my favorite one of all time, because I watched all of them. I was a big Saturday Night Live fan during the time of Jack Handey's Deep Thoughts. My favorite one was extremely succinct, so it's not going to be long-winded. I can tell you my favorite Deep Thoughts by Jack Handey. It went something like this. He says, "If God lives inside of us, like many people think, I sure hope he likes enchiladas, because that's what he's getting." That's one of the funniest, most simple jokes. It's a Norm kind of joke. That's probably why I like it so much too. If God lives inside of us, like some people think, I sure hope he likes enchiladas, because that's what he's getting. My favorite one of all time. There's some others I really love. There's a Disneyland one where he takes his nephew out to a burned up shack, and he says he's taking him to Disneyland, and then he goes to this old burned down shack and goes, "Oh no, Disneyland burned down." That one was really good. It was a lot longer, a lot more I don't know, it's just much darker. But the enchilada one, by far my favorite. Anyway, like I said, I don't have a whole lot to say. If I will say this, if you're wherever you're at in life, I hope you're doing pure awesome. But if you are facing obstacles or just have a heavy heart like I do, that's still, you're facing it with power, courage, kindness, and most of all, integrity. Integrity being at the top of that list. And then just, as much as possible, striving to be pure awesome. And I think if you do that, as the chips fall where they will, it's probably your best bet. So anyway, this is Odin. As always, thank you for joining me, and until next time, take care, and we'll see you later.